Did Beesmas destroy the blue hives? This video was originally going to be on this topic, but then someone commented this on my last video, and it made me realize that this video topic is a lot more complex than you would think. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining how Beesmas destroyed blue hives, but at the same time, they technically destroyed themselves. Also, today is Valentine's Day for me, and I spent many hours of it editing this video just for you guys. All I ask is that you guys take literally just 3 seconds and subscribe, and let's see if we can hit 20,000 subscribers today. If you haven't given anyone anything for Valentine's Day yet, well, now's your chance. So have a good day and enjoy the video. Okay, so in order to understand if Beesmas truly destroyed the blue hives, we have to go back to the very beginning when Beesmas first started. Now, this is when the Robo challenge was added to the game. Now, in the very beginning of Beesmas, this was definitely extremely tough for blue hives because red and white hives do decent damage and collect fair amounts of pollen, whereas blue hives aren't exactly known for doing a ton of damage and not collecting that much pollen. Well, now you might be thinking, don't blue hives make an absolute heck ton of honey during Beesmas? Like, that's specifically when they're overpowered. They shouldn't be having trouble with the Robo challenge. Blue hives are really good at making honey. The Robo challenge requires pollen, and there is a difference between honey and pollen. Honey is where blue hives get most of their pollen. It's from converting at the hive, and they get all their honey from the balloons. Whereas pollen is more for red and white, where they pick up more stuff from the field, and that's where they get most of their pollen. Not really from like balloons or converting, but from the actual flowers themselves. And if you haven't noticed, in the Robo challenge, there are a lot more of the mini quests that require pollen collected than honey made. Not to mention that at the start of every Robo challenge round, it actually drains out your entire balloon, giving blue hives a really big disadvantage. Now, obviously, this was a problem in the beginning of Beesmas because the Robo challenge can't really be directed towards red and white hives. That would just be discriminating against the blue hives. Sure, they're overpowered and all they do is macro, but Onnit still has to give them a chance. So in order to try and fix this problem, Onnit just added more attack upgrades to the Robo challenge and just more stuff that would really help the blue hives out and to get better scores. And to be honest, it did help a small percentage of the blue hives. Blue hives were now actually really good at Robo challenges and able to do just as well as red and white, and we're definitely able to do even better after simply making a few hive changes and adding like precise and attack bees. But the main problem here is that most of the blue hive community was still really bad at the Robo challenge, and there is a big reason why, and that is all because of macro. Now, you might be wondering how macro is even tied into this. Macro is something blue hives do completely separate from the Robo challenge. You don't see a blue hive macroing during the Robo challenge. That's just not how it works. And yeah, just from a distance, that's what you would think, that the macro honestly has nothing to do with this. You wouldn't think of macro to be the problem in the first place, but it actually is the biggest problem, and I'll be explaining why. So red makes a decent amount of honey macroing, but white makes very little. But still, in general, red hives do have to grind manually, and so do white hives. You might be wondering why this is important, but I'll get to that. White hives and red hives mainly just make a lot of their honey from boosting. But with blue, getting honey is kind of different. If you didn't know already, blue is extremely overpowered with macro, and that's actually where blue gets most of their honey. It's just from macro. Blue hives tend to have a lot higher playtime in-game because they spend all that time macroing and getting all that honey that way. But in-game time is not the same as experience, and that's where the big problem comes in. Throughout the entire year, blue hives have been constantly macroing, constantly AFK, while meanwhile, the red and white hives were manually grinding out the pollen, getting better, gaining skill, learning more about the game, just gaining more experience, whereas all blue hives were doing was turning on a macro and going to bed. And that's where we run into the biggest problem, is because the Robo challenge requires a lot of experience, it requires a lot of skill. And the sad truth is that yes, there are really good blue hive players that I definitely respect. They're good at the game, they grind it out, but a big portion of the blue hive community honestly just macros. Blue hives just have a lot of trouble and in general don't really know how to grind out in bee swarm. Something that red and white hives know very well is something very obscure to blue hives. So the entire time we thought that the problem was the fact that blue hives just can't collect a ton of pollen or can't do enough damage, but in reality it's just because most of the blue hives have just gotten too used to not playing the game and kind of sitting back and chilling, and therefore are not really that experienced in the game when compared to an endgame white or red hive. So if you're a blue hive, honestly, keep doing robo challenges. You have to get practice in. It's not something that's just gonna come naturally. But if you're a blue hive and watching this video, hopefully you do understand all of this, and hopefully everything does end up balancing itself out and blue hives can make more progress in the robo challenge. So with that said, thank you for watching my hours of work, and subscribe if you're single, cause so am I. Just cause you're single doesn't mean you can't have a good time on Valentine's Day, so please help me hit 20,000 subscribers, please, it'll bring me joy.